They told him he was finished, that his best years were behind him, that he was just a throw-in, a name on the trade sheet used to get someone better. On March 18th, 2021, Jared Goff woke up as the quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams and went to bed as the quarterback nobody wanted. He wasn't traded, he was discarded, packaged with draft picks just to make him someone else's problem. For most quarterbacks, that would have been the end, but for Jared Goff, it was just the beginning. Because 4 years later, the same man who was written off by the league became the heartbeat of a city. A quarterback whose name echoes through Detroit sports arenas, from Ford Field to Red Wings games, a chant that reminds everyone just how far he's come. This is the story of how Jared Goff went from forgotten to beloved, and why the NFL has completely fallen in love with him. But before Detroit could even fall in love with him, Goff had to be broken first. When he learned he'd been traded away by the team that drafted him, there was no warning, no explanation. All Jared knew was that he was no longer the quarterback of the LA Rams. Actually, there was something else he knew as well. He wasn't just being traded away, he was being given away, merely an add-on to a trade package that already included 2 first-round picks and a 3rd rounder. That right there is officially rock bottom. Dreams of winning a Super Bowl with the team that drafted you were now in the trash, and a whole heap of questions were waiting ahead. After all, bridge quarterback for one of the worst franchises in NFL history doesn't exactly sound like it comes with much job security. Regardless of what the future held, Goff had now officially made the transition from Golden Boy, first overall pick, to written off underdog. And it just so happens that he was going to join a team who fit into that same category. Having not won a division title since 1993, the Detroit Lions couldn't have been bigger underdogs if they had tried. They were fresh off 3 consecutive 4th-placed NFC North finishes and were embarking on a new era with Dan Campbell as head coach and Brad Holmes as general manager. The new Detroit Brain Trust knew they had one hell of a task on their hands, and they identified Goff as the perfect guy to head up the operation, a figurehead to lead the locker room, someone who embodied the toughness and underdog nature of the city. Now, while we all know that this story has a happy ending, it certainly didn't look like it was going to end up that way early, because for as much as I said Goff had reached rock bottom when being traded away by LA, it turns out there was another level a little bit lower for him to visit before the uprising could begin. That would come halfway through his 2nd season as a Lion in 2022. A dismal 6-point outing against the Dallas Cowboys, in which Goff was responsible for 4 turnovers, seemed to mark the beginning of the end for his time as the starting quarterback in Detroit. The home fans were booing him, and to make matters worse, the man who had replaced him in LA had just won a Super Bowl. This really was the lowest of lows for Goff. His Lions were sitting at 1-5 on the season, and the Dan Campbell experience was viewed as a laughingstock that was likely to be shut down before the end of the 2022 campaign. It was the kind of failure that elicits sympathy from all corners. Careers look like they're coming to an end. The team itself is a threat to no one, and everyone knows what's coming. Right? Well, not quite. After that poor outing against the Cowboys, Jared Goff and Dan Campbell had a meeting. As was reported by Michael Silver of The Athletic, it was a meeting in which Jared Goff believed he was going to be told he was benched. When that news never came, Goff had an epiphany. He told Campbell, "I've been trying to overcome certain things throughout the game, constantly thinking that this is the moment we're going to turn it around. I'm squeezing so hard, trying to help us win, because we all want it so badly. I have to release that a little bit and just do my job. One play at a time. I'm just going to do my job and not worry about the rest of it." In that moment, the fear of losing his job was gone. The pressure he had been putting on himself ever since the trade was gone. All the talk of being nothing more than a bridge quarterback combined with the willingness of the LA Rams to discard him at a bargain price, was always going to have an impact. But Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes never wavered in their support of him. They believed he could become the quarterback who would lead their unlikeliest of revivals, and it was after that meeting that their faith would begin to be rewarded. After starting the season with a 1-5 record and with 6 interceptions over the first 6 games, Jared Goff flipped a switch. He threw just 1 interception over the final 11 games of the season, leading his downtrodden Lions to 8 wins and 3 losses. After falling to 1-6 to open the year, Goff and company finished the year with a 9-8 record, their first winning season in 5 years. For his efforts in executing the dramatic midseason turnaround, Goff was awarded his 3rd Pro Bowl as an alternate, having completed 65% of his passes for 4,438 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. It wasn't quite enough to pinch a playoff spot, but it was enough to save everyone's jobs and instill a whole new level of belief in the locker room and within the fan base. Everyone loves a good underdog story, and in both Goff and the Detroit Lions as a team and organization, you had 2 underdogs you couldn't help but get behind. Then, in 2023, things went to a whole new level. You see, while Dan Campbell and Jared Goff had been fixing the culture in the locker room, and Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn had been implementing their offensive and defensive systems, Brad Holmes had been busy hitting home runs in free agency and the draft. Jared Goff was now entering a 2023 season with rookies Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta, who joined a long list of other stellar draft day values that includes Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jameson Williams. Add in the free agent signing of David Montgomery as well, and all of a sudden, there were offensive playmakers everywhere you looked. Holmes and Campbell had stuck by their quarterback, built up his confidence, and now furnished him with a dream team of weapons. And their reward was a 12-5 record, which was tied for the 2nd best in franchise history at the time and a first division title since 1993. That is 30 years of pain gone, just like that. Of course, Goff was the architect of this epic season, operating the offense perfectly, delivering pinpoint passes to his receivers and racking up the yards. He completed 67% of his passes for 4,575 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. More importantly than this offensive domination, though, was the Detroit Lions' return to playoff action for the first time since the 2016 season, and an opportunity to give the fans a first playoff victory since 1991. Over that 32-year stretch, the team had been to the playoffs just 8 times, all resulting in losses. It was one of the worst stretches in modern sporting history, and funnily enough, that playoff run in the 1991 season came at the end of another playoff win drought of 34 years, dating back to 1957. So, in total, between 1957 and 2022, the Detroit Lions had won just 1 singular playoff game. Now, in 2023, Jared Goff and his new-look Detroit Lions had a chance to break a curse that had plagued Motor City for decades. And who would they be facing in this all-important wildcard round clash? None other than the LA Rams, the team that discarded Jared Goff just a few seasons earlier, kickstarting this remarkable redemption journey. The NFL couldn't ask for better drama, and it would all be going down at Ford Field. Obviously, there was a frenzied crowd of Lions fans in the building, praying for a win. But even for neutrals, how could you not be rooting for the team in blue? From Goff to Dan Campbell and the franchise's barren history books, there were so many storylines to fall in love with and cheer for. All eyes were on Ford Field, and thankfully, the game delivered. Jared Goff was superb on the day, completing 81.5% of his passes for 277 yards, 1 touchdown, and 0 interceptions. But on the other side of the field, the man who replaced him was also firing on all cylinders, collecting 367 yards and 2 touchdowns himself. With 8 minutes to go in the 4th quarter, Matthew Stafford set up his kicker with a simple 29-yarder to pull his team within 1 point. After the two teams then traded punts on the ensuing drive, Jared Goff found himself with the ball in his hands with just 4 minutes left on the clock and a 1-point lead to protect. That was it, the opportunity he had been waiting for. A chance to prove the doubters wrong and stick it to the team who had traded him away in the process. A few nice plays by David Montgomery took Detroit to the 2-minute warning. From here, the Lions had a 2nd and 9, and crucially, the Rams only had one timeout at their disposal. For most coaches, running the ball to take as much time off the clock would be the obvious choice. But Dan Campbell isn't most coaches. Not only is he a coach who likes to be aggressive, he is a coach who has unwavering belief in his quarterback. It was him and Brad Holmes who identified Goff as the man to lead their rebuild, and it was him who stuck with Goff even when everyone else was calling for him to be benched in 2022. So, with a first playoff win just 9 yards away, he didn't opt for the conservative route. He put the ball in his quarterback's hands and trusted him to go and win him the game. Which, of course, he did, picking up the first down on an 11-yard completion to Amon-Ra St. Brown, which allowed the team to kneel out for the win. In that moment, Jared Goff became a Detroit Lions legend. He had completed his rise from written-off failure to beloved savior. And the fun didn't stop there. A win in the divisional round gave Detroit fans their second playoff victory in 32 years, and even led many people to question whether the Lions were the new America's team. Unfortunately, the fun had to come to an end 1 week later in the NFC Championship game, with the San Francisco 49ers coming from behind to block a trip to the Super Bowl. Still, for a franchise that was so starved of joy for decades, that 2023 campaign was viewed as a raging success, and it confirmed Jared Goff's status as a hero in Motor City. And you bet Detroit fans made sure he felt the love.
I played with the Lions with his dad, Dominic. Yeah. Dominic was a dog. He was a great teammate, nice guy, really gentle. But once we got on the field, Dominic was a completely different guy. I know his son has some of that in him too.
Jared Goff going back to the Lions.
And they're chanting for Jared Goff. Lions. That's tomorrow, right? Yeah. That's tomorrow. They have Matthew Stafford coming in here tomorrow. Yeah. They got a lot to deal with.
His toughness and resilience is one of the primary reasons why Holmes and Campbell made such a strong move for him, and decided to stick with him even when times got tough. They saw something in Goff that probably Goff himself didn't even realize he had, and it altered the franchise's history forever. It really is one of the most remarkable stories we've ever seen, with both Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions organization delivering an underdog story that is hard to match. Since the meeting with Dan Campbell midway through the 2022 campaign, in which Goff was at his lowest, believing he was going to lose his job, the quarterback has led the Lions to a 41-13 record, including postseason action. For his role as the franchise savior, he was rewarded with a 4-year, $170 million contract in the 2024 offseason. And how did Goff celebrate that? With his 4th Pro Bowl selection, tossing 4,629 yards, a career-high 37 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, while leading his Lions to the best record in franchise history. That 15-2 record, of course, won the Lions the NFC North for the 2nd time in 2 years, before injuries played their part in a disappointing divisional round loss to Washington. Now, with Detroit looking as menacing as ever in 2025, we can expect plenty more opportunities for Jared Goff-led playoff runs, and plenty more of this from Lions fans. From being cast aside in LA to becoming the symbol of Detroit's revival, Jared Goff has done more than just save a franchise. He's united a city. He's not the loudest, flashiest, or most polarizing quarterback in the league, but he's the one everyone quietly roots for. The NFL doesn't just respect Jared Goff, it loves him. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and let us know which player you'd like to see a video on next.